Hi, my name is Dennis Culliton, retired middle school teacher, local historian, and co-founder of the Witness Stones Project. Before I co-founded the Witness Stones Project here in Guilford, I spent a lot of time researching and retelling the stories from Guilford's past, including the stories of our Guilford war soldiers and Harriet Beecher's family who had deep roots in Guilford. Over the past few weeks, I have tried to make sense historically of what was going on, the devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the disruptions to our lives. But my mind wandered to the most devastating event in the history of our country. Not Pearl Harbor, not 9/11, not the American Revolution, not even the Spanish influenza. The most devastating event in our country's history was the American Civil War. Last month, March 2020, CNN reported that a field hospital was being constructed in Central Park, New York, the first time since the American Civil War. The construction of a field hospital today juxtaposes the death and disease in the 1860s from that war and the disease and death in the 2020s from COVID-19 and begs us to tell the twice-told tales of the American Civil War and its main cause, slavery. In 2019, when Teaching Tolerance magazine highlighted the work we were doing in Connecticut with the Witness Stones Project, where we restore the history and honor the humanity and contributions of enslaved in Connecticut, they mentioned that the project was unable to connect Connecticut slavery to the American Civil War. That was true when discussing the project. One of the reasons that the connection wasn't made was that slavery had mostly ended in Connecticut 40 years before the start of the war. By 1820, slavery in Connecticut had been reduced, with the number of enslaved persons dwindling down from 97 from the peak of 5,000 from 97 from the peak of 5,101 in 1779. It was legally ended by law in 1848. In Guilford, Connecticut, slavery decreased by 61 in 1774 to 3 in 1810 to 0 in 1820. But we can make the connection by looking at the Civil War monument and the statue on the Guilford, Connecticut Green. My personal journey to Connecticut slavery started when I caught the bug of learning about the Civil War, looking through the residents from Guilford who served the Union during the war. After years of study, 3 of these resident stories, Sergeant George Augustus Foote Jr., his cousin Captain Uriah Parmeles, and Private Raphael Ward Benton's stories rose to the surface through their letters, diaries, and anecdotes that are accessible today. These 3 men were descended from some of the original British colonial families who first settled Connecticut. But we also want to tell the story of a 4th Guilford citizen who fought, served, and gave his life to preserve the Union and abolish slavery. Private William Henry Wright was not descended from British colonial freedmen, but descended from Africans who were captured, purchased, and sold to white colonists and early Americans in Connecticut. Although the sacrifice of his life was not greater than the lives given by Foote, Parmelee, and Benton, it may be more poignant since as a grandson of Guilford slaves, he fought and died to free those still enslaved in the Confederacy. But before we talk about these 5 soldiers, I wanted to bring you down a path that provides background to both the soldiers and slavery in Connecticut. After you're done, please move on to the next slide.